This week in U.S. immigration news, we are going to cover Supreme Court hears arguments over DHS immigration enforcement policy, immigrant children separated from their families, livestock farmers push for immigration bill, concerns over how DHS will prepare for the end of Title 42, Democrats, migrant advocates reject GOP push to oust DHS secretary, higher ed groups push for permanent DACA solution, Judge Tipton seized control of ICE. On Tuesday, the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments regarding the Biden administration's attempt to reinstate guidance that directed border authorities to focus enforcement actions on illegal immigrants that posed public safety threats. Arguments lasted almost 2 hours between lawyers for the U.S. government and Texas over whether executive branch officials have the authority to focus enforcement actions on certain groups of undocumented immigrants over others. The DHS policy at issue was from a memo that instructed immigration officers to prioritize the arrest and deportation of undocumented immigrants that pose a threat to public safety or national security. The Biden administration promised to end the immigrant family separations that began under the Trump administration in early 2017. In January 2020, CBP established specific criteria which allowed for the separation of children from their families if immigration authorities deemed the parent unfit, if the parent is going to be prosecuted for a felony, if the parent is hospitalized, or other specific circumstances. But from the start of the Biden administration to August 2022, U.S. authorities reported at least 372 cases of family separations. The Biden administration did not stop the family separations, nor have they compensated past victims of the policy. Livestock farmers are pushing for the Senate to pass an immigration bill that will modernize the agricultural visa system. The agricultural industry is hoping the Senate will vote on the Farm Workforce Modernization Act between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Livestock farmers argue the current system does not address their need for year-round workers who have experience with animals. The FWMA was passed by the House and Senate. Michael Bennet and Mike Crapo are leading the effort to pass the bill in the Senate. The bill would provide a path to citizenship for farm workers who have been in the country for more than a decade. Employers would have to go through more stringent hiring protections to prevent unauthorized foreign workers from joining the workforce. U.S. Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Mark Kelly wrote a letter to the Department of Homeland Security asking how the agency is preparing for the end of Title 42. In the letter, the senators wrote that the change will result in record levels of migrants pushing shelters in border states beyond capacity. Sinema and Kelly argue that the resources may be even more scarce after Title 42 and the agency should work with local governments and aid groups to make the transition run smoothly. The pandemic-era policy allows for migrants to be expelled from the U.S. under public health grounds, but the policy is set to end December 21. Democratic lawmakers and immigration advocates are fighting against a GOP leader's attempt to oust Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy gave Mayorkas until January 3 to resign or face a congressional investigation and potentially impeachment. U.S. Reps Veronica Escobar and Sylvia Garcia have described the threats as political posturing. Vanessa Cardenas, executive director of the nonprofit America's Voice, has called for legalization and more legal avenues for people to come to the county. Cardenas spoke out against McCarthy's attempt to impeach Mayorkas. Multiple higher education associations, institutional leaders and advocates are pushing for Congress to pass legislation to provide protections for recipients of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. Members of the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration are heading to Washington, D.C. to explain to lawmakers about their goal for DACA recipients. Higher Education Association sent a letter to congressional leadership pushing for legislation to be passed for protective measures for the future of DACA. In July, Judge Drew Tipton, a Trump appointee to a federal court in Texas, seized control of parts of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The Supreme Court will have a full hearing on the case this week. The case involves a memo from Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas that was issued in September 2021 and told ICE agents to prioritize the enforcement of undocumented immigrants who pose a threat to national security or public safety. The states of Texas and Louisiana asked Tipton to invalidate the memo. Tipton declared the enforcement provisions in the memo invalid. The Supreme Court will be hearing the legality of this order.
Friends, show us some love and smash the like button. It doesn't cost you anything. If you have an immigration problem or need a second opinion because you cannot get a hold of your own lawyer, schedule a meeting with our team. Share information with our CARES team and they will help you get scheduled with our legal team. Now here's a secret code to unlock the free 15 minutes.